Hey, this is Ashley.
And Cindy.
And this is Life for Dummies.
Because we're real dumb.
Yes, ma'am.
I've been around.
What are we talking about today?
Well, I thought we should talk about the fact that every day is a daily reprieve from active addiction. So when I wake up first thing in the morning, I am an untreated addict.
Oh, I've never heard that before.
Yeah, so I am untreated every morning when I wake up. So the first thing that I do in the morning really matters, right? I can either surrender in the morning and arrest my disease and have a great day, or I can totally feed into it and live this crazy life, acting out on character defects and making a mess out of everything.
That's just new to me, so I don't have a lot to say. That's interesting, though, because, people who are motivational or working on themselves, like self-help and motivational textbooks, frequently talk about the choices that you make when you first wake up are going to determine the rest of your day.
Mm-hmm. And that's what we're talking about right here. So every morning I wake up and I pray to my higher power. And my prayers are very similar to they were when I first started living this way of life. I thank my higher power for allowing me to wake up. I ask him to help me stay clean today. I ask him for the willingness to be willing, the ability to be honest, and the ability to be open-minded to this way of life. And that's pretty much it, And then when I do that and I start my day out like that, I have surrendered fully to the fact that I cannot do this alone and I need help, and what am I going to do about it today?
What's being brought to mind is this example of a story I had heard about how an individual had an early morning shift every morning, and at 4 o'clock in the morning he would just fall out of his bed in a daze and go straight to the freezer in his kitchen and open up a cold handle of vodka and just start chugging it. And after, some time of chugging it, however many seconds or so, getting as much of it down as he could, he was finally starting to feel better. And he would talk about how today he gets up and drops on his knees and asks his higher power to get through the day. And he talks about how big of a shift in his mornings from his old way of life to his new.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and that's exactly it. Every morning when I wake up, I have a choice. I have a choice where I can be an addict in recovery, or I can be an addict in active addiction. And the choice is mine, right? I can choose to go pick up that handle and do what I used to do. Or I can choose to turn my will and my life over and live in my higher power's will, try to stay aligned with that all day, and, just have a good day and live in this peaceful, serene place that I get to live in today, where I'm happy, joyous, and free. I am so ready to continue to live that way of life. But it's also very easy to take my will back and start acting out on old behaviors.
A lot of people in this way of life have what's called a healthy fear of their disease, and that's why they treat it just for today, because they realize that they're only given 24 hours of reprieve if they do all the things that they have to do to keep it, right? To keep this recovery. They only have 24 hours, and so the next day they have to do all the same things again in order to keep it. And that's why, a lot of the times we just talk about it's just for today, because really it is.
It is. It's 24 hours. And I was taught, also that the person who wakes up earliest has the most clean time, right? It's nice that days add up and they turn into weeks, and weeks turn into months, and months turn into year. But literally all I have is today. So I have to make sure that every single morning and every single night, I thank my higher power. And, I used to, when I would pray back in active addiction, I would ask for things that I wanted or needed, or ask my higher power to get me out of this situation that I had gotten myself in, right? Foxhole prayers. And today the shift is just so amazing, because I am just thanking my higher power for his grace that he has bestowed upon me and kept me alive when I tried so hard to kill myself, and that he has blessed me with this life and the beautiful people that have helped me get this life today.
I mean, it is really miraculous for anyone who has the disease of addiction to stay clean for one day. I mean, there's so many temptations throughout the day and even within our society where it's almost like normalized, right, to use. And it's something that's really hard, at least it was for me in the beginning, to have to every single day throughout the day confront that, because I was just trying to make it to my bed clean.
Yeah, and it is everywhere. It is all around us, and it is normalized. And some forms are completely legal and acceptable. And so when I first came to this way of life, I had to make sure that I wasn't going to places that made that look appealing, right? That's part of how I persevere and I stay in recovery, is that if I'm going to go to a bar, I'm probably going to end up drinking. If I'm hanging out with people that like smoke weed all day, I'm probably going to end up at some point smoking weed, because I will forget how terrible it was, and I will only see how great it looks right then in the moment. And then the next thing I know, I'm off to the races. And I'm not like those people, right? Once I start, I cannot stop. And once I start, I cannot stop, and then I don't stop, and then it ends up in me wanting to end my life.
Yeah, and I read somewhere yesterday that our pain memory is short. And so literally, like, you could have alcohol poisoning the night before and want to pick up a drink again the next day. Like, our pain memory is extremely short. And so that's why it's like, what are you doing at a bar? It's like,
literally,
like, what are you doing? Like everybody else around you is using, and so we become the people we hang out with. Like, I had a couple years clean, and I knew all these people in this way of life. They must just not have been practicing the program. Like, I don't know, because I can never judge another addict's recovery. However, they started hanging out at the bars and would invite me, and I really had a hard time with it, because that was my drug of choice anyway. And so I stopped hanging out with them, and I had to kick them literally out of my life. And today, all of them have gone back out, and one has died.
And that's the reality of this disease, right? We talked about earlier that it does not discriminate. And the reality of it is, for people like us, to use is to die. Whether it be spiritual, emotionally, or the whole finality of it all, really, take the dirt nap, as my husband and I always say. But that is how serious this is that if I choose on any given day, because I definitely have freedom of choice now because the drugs are out of my system, if I choose on any given day, then I too can return to the misery and I will end up dead.
That's why it's extremely serious to not put ourselves in those situations. And that's why people who have a healthy fear of this disease don't. They just completely remove, to the best of their ability, any of those old situations and behaviors and habits and people that they used to hang out with.
So if you find yourself looking for excitement and fun, and you're like, I can only find it in a bar, then there you are lying to yourself. And that is your disease lying to you in your own voice, telling you, because your disease wants you to use. There are so many ways in recovery to have fun. There are so many ways to do healthy things and have a great time and make long-lasting friendships and relationships that aren't based on using.
Yeah, and that adrenaline rush that I would chase, I found out later is actually not something that gives me long-term fun. And that's the difference. It just takes a long time to stop craving chaos. Because my whole life had been chaos. And my mind, my disease, had convinced me that chaos was fun. But really, chaos was freaking chaos, man. And it was not fun what would happen.
It's exhausting, you know? So, you know, we talk about this stuff because it's real. And I believe that it is something that all addicts think about, you know, all addicts in recovery think about the fact that, like, I'm never going to have fun again. I'm going to live this boring, mundane life. And that is just a lie your disease tells you. You keep coming back and we'll figure it out together.
Absolutely. Love you.
Love you.
I've been around, but I can't get you out of my head.